Welcome to today's episode of the Staff Meeting Podcast, where Millennium Business Solutions group members join in and share key conversations from staff meetings that are helpful for the public to know.
Okay, so we've come out of our super secret portion of our staff meeting, and this is our time we share tips and tricks with each other. I actually was going to do this really awesome presentation on the Orca security report, but I am not prepared. So probably next time when we do it, Andrew, you've run it recently, so you're probably the most skilled at running the Orca report. And just for everyone who may not know, Orca is a security audit tool that coaches you on how to make security fine-tuned settings in Office 365. I would say that the takeaway that we would have in that meeting is you just have to be a bit careful, because if you do everything it suggests, you can lock it down that no one can use it. It can be a little overzealous. Anyway, I'm going to show what I am prepared that I can show, which I think is really cool. And Rob and I have been working on this, and it is Windows 365. And I'll show it here really quickly. So I'll show my screen. So Windows 365 is a different way of creating a cloud computer other than AVD. And the application of this would be for a very, very small implementation. So if you have somebody who's like 5, 6, 8, 10 employees, 100% AVD is the best way to go. And that gives some really good value for the money. There are things in the AVD pricing that are float around a bit. And Dave Lockridge, I think some of those things are like how many hours it's up and running, the storage it uses.
Yes.
Yeah, all those kinds of things. So if you leave it on for the full 700 plus hours, that's a cost. But if you have it go to sleep on the weekends and stuff, you can save money. So what's nice about this is that it's a fixed fee, which is not bad. And so it never changes, and it runs for the entire month. Now, what I'm going to show is this $41 one. Probably that's a bit too lightweight for people. This $66 one is probably the best, in my view. And we're going to do one for a customer coming up pretty soon. And by we, I mean Rob. So like two or three people, this is not bad. And it's the same every month. But once you get to, I would say, about 4 people, wouldn't you say, David, you're starting to get into AVD territory, right? Given the, if you were at, let's say $250, $300 a month, you're kind of getting toward AVD.
You're going to want to start looking at AVD for a cheaper solution for that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I don't know. But for 3 users, like, this is super cheap. And here's the big thing. It's just a couple of steps to implement. So I'm going to show those here. And what you have to do is you come into the Intune Connection Center that everyone's familiar with, go to Devices, go to All Devices, go to Windows, and there's a little button here for Windows 365. And you need to create 2 objects in here. That's it. And the first one is, what network am I going to be connected to? And in this one, I just put it on the same network with some of our servers because I already had it set up. But you would probably create a separate little network for the AVD. And that's all this is. This is just where does the asset go onto what virtual network in Azure. So you do need to have an Azure account. You do need to have an Azure subscription. You do need to have at least one virtual network defined. And then if you want, it's optional, do all the stuff in Intune that you normally do, like the screensaver and power profile and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. Because Windows 365 Enterprise will process your Intune policies, which is cool. The Windows 365 business version doesn't. So conditional access policies, screensaver, different countries, blah, blah, blah. That's only with Enterprise. And which is interesting, right? So
Yeah.
So the other thing that you have to do, I'll go here, is this provisioning policy. And all the policy is you're picking one of these images and you're picking out one other thing that I can't remember. You're picking out that it is not hybrid joined, but intra joined.
Yep.
You get a couple of different flavors of Microsoft Windows, and you can choose with or without Office. That's what it was. The
Awesome.
name convention, right? And that's it.
And don't forget, when you name the provisioning policy, it shows up in the remote. So be mindful of how you name it.
Yeah, you don't want to call anybody out on their Windows 365 machine. Not
Right. So what you're going to see is, because I messed it up 100%. So what you're going to see is my mistake is, see the name of the policy here where it's like called provision policy, right? That's actually the name of the machine the end user sees.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a good tip.
Yeah,
that's when you remote in and the remote bar comes up, that's what it says across the remote bar.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to be mindful of what you name it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's a good tip because I didn't know that.
It's a very good tip. Like if anyone takes anything from
small
this,
things.
yeah. So you make these two things. That's it. Any of your Intune policies, all of which we can cover in another episode.
Yep.
They all will process on this. And then all you do is you buy a license key. Let me find Rob. And the moment you apply the license key to the user, like this, boom, it makes the machine right then.
So
That's
the
it.
process was to build the provisioning, get the licensing, and then assign it to the person that's going to take on that machine.
Right. So if it was totally clean, it would be Azure subscription, of course, right?
Of course. Yep.
Create one VNet, right?
That's right.
Then you would do any Intune policies that you want, whatever. And then as far as Windows 365, it's only these two tabs. That's it. This tells it when I provision the machine, what network am I going to deposit the machine on? And this one says, which type of image? Which one do you want? And do you want Office built in or not?
Got it. No, that's great. That makes it super easy.
Super fast. Super fast. So it's fast as far as provisioning, right? If you think about all the things that we have to do for making AVD images, then I mean, again, this is super quick. Like Rob and I had this done. I had a couple of missteps. If I had not done that, it would have been under an hour, it would have been 10, 15 minutes. And then when it goes to make this provision policy, for some reason, it takes 15, 20 minutes. So this takes a long time.
But you can build the provisioning policy and then just keep using that across the board. It's almost like a workspace thing, the provisioning policy, almost like it's two things. One, what it presents to you, right?
Yeah.
Which is almost like a workspace inside of AVD.
Yep.
And then you're also telling it what type of machines. That's very interesting. That's cool.
It's similar, it's like a gallery.
Yeah, it's
like
definitely a gallery. It's pulling.
Yeah.
It's pulling and I see that there's a tab for custom images where you would build your own gallery.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very cool. So there's a lot of advanced things here.
It's pretty cool. And so it's super fast. And again, 40 or depending on which image, 40 or $66.
Oh.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So say, for example, you have an old legacy application that you're building a server, you're putting it on the VNet, and you want to use these machines to connect to that server. Can it be done?
Not easily.
Okay, so what would a common use for these machines be?
We have a couple of people who are attorneys who work at home. They are in a super high compliancy environment, and we can't secure their home network or their home machines, and they have to be SOC 2. So by making the machine here, and all they do is connect remotely, I'm able to maintain the SOC 2 compliance.
Yeah, and all
That's
they do
good.
is run cloud apps. They don't need to run
Oh, web
anything
browser.
that requires Kerberos or anything like that, server and client
But
base.
that's a thing. So you can do in the provisioning policy hybrid joined. I have not gotten it. I've not gotten it to work.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, you answered the question perfectly. But I was just curious if
And you know what? Once you get into having to have a AD server, you're kind of into AVD territory anyway,
Exactly.
Correct.
Because
but I wanted to see if these would work for a small, there's a lot of companies out there which have some legacy application and still only 2, maybe 3 users that access that legacy application.
I may try to do an update for you guys and see if I can beat this into submission, but it got to a point where I could only get this to work, and I put it on the VNet next to the server. And
so a follow-up question would be, can these Windows 365 devices see each other?
Yeah. No.
Okay. You know where I'm going with this questioning, right?
I know.
It's very
Yeah, like a
interesting,
QuickBooks thing, right?
Sure, exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they don't. So they're each an island.
Yep.
They
Okay.
almost come out in isolation mode, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if
that.
you're sticking with the high level of security, the SOC compliance, and all that kind of stuff, that's important. If you're trying to save a company some money and use this for simplicity and ease of management and still allow them to access their legacy apps in the cloud, no.
Well, and then the other piece is coming out in April is the box, right? Is
That's right,
the Windows 365, I don't know what they call it. It's like a little box. And the AI that's transcribing this right now is going to make fun of me. But and lots of people said, "Oh, that's great. I take that box and they can join my AVD session." The box is only for Windows 365.
Wow. Whoa.
It does not do AVD.
I thought they announced that functionality. I mean, that would be the selling point for most companies, is to connect to their AVD environments without having to buy all that extra hardware.
Yeah, there's people making that request. Yeah, there's people making that request, but those right now, everything that I've seen on it, they only connect to these type of machines, not to AVD.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll show you what this looks like. Again, this maybe takes 45 minutes to set up. And again, you have all the different policies you can make. I tried to do the peering, which is what Dave Lockridge is saying, where it's in a workgroup mode and you try to share a folder and map it over. No. And then I tried to drop the firewall to try to make them. No. They will not talk to each other.
Exactly. At that point, you're looking more, especially when it's intra-joined. Intra-join isn't the same concept as domain join, where just because we're on the same domain, we all trust each other.
Right.
Intra's taking the approach more of zero trust.
Zero trust, right.
And
so because what I was thinking of was what Dave Lockridge was saying, which is I was trying to do like a QuickBooks thing. And one of the machines is a QuickBooks Boss, and the other machines are QuickBooks clients or Sage 50, right? Peachtree.
Yeah, there's plenty of old legacy apps that people still want to use that are like that, and they will work on a peer-to-peer.
Yeah, and so you can do client server where it talks to the server per this policy, but I will try to see if I can beat it into submission. But to be quite honest with you, I put in legit, a couple of hours last year on trying to get it to be hybrid joined. And you do see you get intra joined or hybrid joined. You do not get pure Kerberos joined, but you can do a hybrid join, and then ask for the domain and this and that. It would give me the finger the whole time. It would not let me in there.
It probably only works with their domain as a service, I would assume, but I would have to look at the documentation.
That's what I think, because what the failure to me looked like, which is why I think I'd have to beat it into submission, it was I can't see the DC.
Exactly.
And so I couldn't control, you can't control specifically customizing the DNS settings on the IP stack. If that makes sense to everybody.
It does. Yep.
So like right here, this is your only control on the IP stack, and it's just where do you want me to drop them in? That's it. This is it. This is all you get right here. So, and this is what it looks like. This is not very exciting, by the way. And see the name?
That's too funny, man. That is hilarious.
So here's our ABD, right? Here, and what's crazy is, I think on the Mac, this is like what's on the screen somehow.
Yes. The new Windows app gives you a preview of what's on the other side. It's a snap in time. It's interesting. Also, you see the snap in time from your ABD was when you were leaving, and FS Logics was unloading.
It's picking up the single sign-on in my Mac session. It's not giving you the Kerberos login, right? The domain /user, blah, blah, blah. It's if you have single sign-on for Windows apps, this is just a Windows app. So this is it. And all of the policies of the apps and the settings in our Intune account make it here. So it auto installs all of the apps, put stuff on here. This is my desktop through OneDrive synchronizing. Rob and I made these icons that run a script because you can never get people to log off.
Exactly, yeah. Can you control the policies on those machines as to timeouts and or they just
so it's listening to the policies you made for all of us.
Oh wow.
See this? Super cool. You pushed this out yesterday?
That's right.
It's here.
Awesome. Wow.
And the end user can only reboot it if they're given admin rights. If they're not, they can only log off.
So it will not reboot.
Yeah, and that's a checkbox in the provisioning that you say, are they an admin or are they not? And
that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and if they are, then they can reboot the machine. They can never shut it down, but they can reboot it. If they're not, all they can do is log off.
Whoa.
So like if they get updates and need to reboot, they can't do it if they're not an admin.
That's a good thing to bring up right there, because some people may run into that limitation or run into that problem and not understand how to fix it. So good call on that, Rob. Yeah, that's awesome.
I would assume that you guys will have control over the policies that would enable some type of updates through management or right.
So there's like 3 different ways to do the updates. You can it deposited the RMM agent, which is pushing updates. The gallery base image itself, as David knows, gets updated. Like you don't touch it. And there is a new tool that it asks for in the provisioning policy Let me close it and show you. But I really wanted to play with it, but I ran out of time. And that is here. Here.
Manage updates, yep.
It is, they asked for in the provisioning policy, do you have a, what do they call it? Hot fix policy?
Hot patch.
Hot patch.
Hot patch policy.
Yep.
So some images inside of actually some images that you can actually select from in Azure will have that next to it. Windows Server 2022 has the hot patch. And for those that don't know what that means, it means that instead of waiting to get updates or having to reboot, the system's able to shove them right in to live as they roll out, and that's what they consider a hot patch.
Mm-hmm.
So
for servers, it means hot patching server 2022 or 2025 means only 4 reboots a year.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's only for the big updates. That's
so in here somewhere in the wizard, it had asked about the hot patch policy if we had one, and I didn't.
We're not managing updates through Intune. We're managing them through the RMM, which
right.
makes sense, right? Like, you don't want 2 bosses.
Yeah, let me go to here. Oh, gosh, what's going on now? Oh, who knows? Now, and so now this is the special flavor of Teams that you can run through the remote session.
That's awesome.
So let me straight to that. So this, we could actually do this call through this version of Teams. Now you can see it's a bit laggy. I've not logged in like a month or so. But you can see where I think for a customer, and it does settle down after a while, you would want this. This is the $40 one. And so you would want the $66 one. It just has a little more horsepower.
Of course.
Let me minimize this. I was going to try and do a speed test, but I think it's probably not going to let me. But it has all of the apps on here that we use. It came by default with the Outlook New.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Microsoft's really pushing that 100%.
That thing's horrible.
See the LogMe and Rescue, all of the tools that we have, it processed all that.
That's super cool. I mean,
put in the SentinelOne
agent. Yeah.
It put in the RMM should be here. Yep, here it is.
It is. Yep.
And yeah. So it, again, this is a bubble, and from a SOC 2 compliancy, everything inside this bubble I can control. This guy's Windows 10 machine at his house, with the TVs and the doorbell and, kids' machines. Like I can't, once we found out it was SOC 2, I knew I was out. Yep. So to wrap it up, just to give a alternative for people who would need 1 or 2 machines or 3. They don't need the full AVD provisioning. And what's nice about this is that it's a fixed fee, $66 per license per month. And you don't really have much setup. It's really very simple in the setup of only doing those 2 things that I showed you, the network setup and the provisioning policy, and then applying the license, and that's it. And it makes it. Of course, you have to have an Azure subscription, and of course, you want to have some Intune policies. But yeah, and things that we will try to take a look at is to see if we could do a hybrid joined, and see if we could I could take RMM off of it and try and do a hot patch policy here, because some people may not have that, so give them an option. But again, for this kind of price, it's not that bad of a deal. So
yeah, it makes sense. Well, man, thanks for showing us that. That's awesome to know. It's a great tool to put in the belt. It's always the right tool for the right job, and that one is a great way to get that.
What's so great about this is Rob is the expert.
He is, man.
Because he's done it one time.
He's done it one time. He's now in true Millennium tradition. He is now the expert. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. I will click the end of the meeting.
Thanks for tuning in to the Staff Meeting Podcast. We tackle the real conversations around all things cybersecurity and technology. Join us every other week as we dive into the latest threats, trends, and transformative solutions shaping our digital world.